The New York Knicks are NBA Cup champions.
Tell me it don't mean something, Coach. Look at this.
Man, that was a great comeback for the Knicks. What a final. That NBA Cup was something this year, wasn't it? Jalen Brunson, MVP. I thought he deserved it. I know a lot of people thought that Anunoby deserved it. We'll debate that, for years to come. But it's not going to take away from the main story. The Knicks are NBA Cup champions. I can't wait for next year's Cup. Maybe they'll actually let us know that it's going on, Max. Good morning, everybody. Jaden Daniels spoke yesterday. We'll get to that this morning on the show. Liam Griffin covers the team for the Washington Times. He's going to join us at 11 a.m. Maybe another guest as well. We're waiting to hear back from a few people. NFL buy and sell today. A look ahead to what will be a pivotal Week 16 in the NFL. Starts tomorrow night in Seattle with the weekend's biggest game and really the biggest game of the year in the NFC. Rams, Seahawks out in Seattle for the NFC West lead and maybe the NFC West title and the number 1 seed in the NFC. This is a big upcoming weekend, and tomorrow night kicks it off. We started to look at the late season schedule a few weeks ago and said, man, we get to that weekend before Christmas, and there are going to be some massive games, starting with that Thursday night game between the Rams and Seahawks. Rain in the forecast. It's been in the forecast all week. It's like monsoon-like, flood-like rains. I don't know what it'll be exactly at kickoff tomorrow night, but chilly and wet, which is typically the case in the Pacific Northwest, but apparently very, very wet. The Rams are actually favored tomorrow night on the road. And then Saturday night, you get Green Bay, Chicago Part 2. A massive game in the NFC North. No Micah Parsons, of course. And then on Sunday, a couple of, big games. Jacksonville, Denver, huge in the AFC. The first of 2 in the NFC South over the final 3 weeks between Tampa and Carolina. How about the Steelers on a bit of a roll the last couple of weeks at desperate Detroit? And then the Sunday nighter, New England at Baltimore. The Ravens hanging on for dear life. And now New England back at the 2 seed spot in the AFC after their loss to Buffalo. San Francisco Indy concludes Week 16 on Monday night with Phillip Rivers getting another start trying to keep the Colts alive. Man, this time of year in the NFL is great. And last year it was so great to be a part of it. It was basically this time last year or a few days later that they flexed Washington, Atlanta in Week 17 or Week 16, the next to last week of the season. They Week 17, there are 18 weeks. Week 17 to Sunday Night Football, the game that would determine whether or not Washington clinched a playoff berth then or needed to do it in the final weekend of the season. This time last year, we were getting ready for Philly, Washington Part 2, which turned out to be really one of the games of the year in the NFC. And as it turned out, a preview of the NFC Championship game. I don't think we knew that in the moment. But this is such a great time of year, and it's the perfect time of year for it to happen with everything else that is going on. Great NFL weekend. Our team not a part of it. I did watch Hard Knocks. And there were some interesting takeaways, but not really for our team. Not much to really discuss as far as our team goes. I want to start the show with this from Rome. Rome writes in talking about Jaden Daniels. Kevin, it's not about talent or regression. It's totally about, can we get 16 to 19 games out of this guy a year? He played 20, 3 compromised last year, and had 3 different injuries this year. More worrisome, actually, than just one major injury. This is the absolute number one concern. Go 5 steps down for the next concern. Thank you for that, Rome. Yeah, I agree with that. I do. And I think that, it's fine for us to start talking about now that his season is completed, as we know, to talk about, what we're worried about the most. What's the number one question mark about Jaden Daniels? That's it for me. Rome nailed it. It's not about talent. I've said this multiple times and said it again yesterday, which is why I think Rome wrote what he wrote. I think it's somewhat insane to discuss regression this year when he played in 3 of 17 games, start to finish, fully healthy. Only played in 4 games total, start to finish, period. I mean, how do you legitimately evaluate a guy who only played 4 games, start to finish, and only 3 of those 4 did he play fully healthy? I mean, if we look at those 4 games, the Giants, the Packers, the Chargers, and the Bears games, he played very well in the Chargers game and in the Chicago game. The last turnover was ugly. No doubt it cost him the game. It was on him. He cost him the game there. But in those 2 games, there's been a lot of discussion about, he didn't have anything, remotely resembling last year. That's just not true. The Chargers game resembled last year. The Bears game, at times resembled last year. Maybe not his best games from last year, the Philly comeback, the Atlanta game at the end of the year, the 2 playoff games. And, he didn't play that poorly in the NFC Championship game either. We'll put that aside for a moment. And then the Giant opener, he wasn't bad in that game. It was just the first time we saw him play since last year, and he didn't put on an absolute dazzling display. But he was solid in that game. The Packer game was not a good game for him. Was not a good game for anybody. And he played the last, quarter for the most part banged up. But I don't know how you can legitimately go through, his season and talk about regression when he barely played football. But I do think what you can take away from this season is what Rome writes about. And that is basically that 3 different injuries essentially cost him 13 full football games out of 17. And even though at LSU, somebody corrected me yesterday, that's fine. They said he actually was 55 of 58 games. I didn't go back and audit the LSU thing. I took it from something that we saw, a year and a half ago when people said 55 out of 57. And I watched a lot of those games junior, senior year, and there were games in which he got banged up, but he came back in to the games and played well. But for the most part, he played the massive majority of his games in college, fully healthy. And in his rookie season, out of the 20 games, he played 17 of them fully healthy, and the others healthy enough, certainly healthy enough to start the games and finish the games, with the exception of the Carolina game in which he came out. And then, he came out of the Dallas game in the season finale because there was nothing to play for. They had already, clinched the playoff berth, even though seeding was still up for grabs. Remember, along with Green Bay, the 6 and 7 seed were to be determined on that final Sunday of the season. What is the number one question mark for you about Jaden Daniels now that his 2025 season is over? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. For me, it is availability. For better or worse, it's availability. Because we have seen now in his 2 NFL seasons, we have seen now 4 different injuries, none of which have been serious. And Rome says that that's more worrisome than one major injury. I don't know if it is or isn't. I think that one major injury, if it were legs related, knee related, that would be much more worrisome than the injuries that he's had. I'd much rather not have him coming off a major knee surgery. I'd much rather him coming off a non-throwing elbow dislocation and a hamstring at one point. And earlier in the season, a minor knee bruise. I'd much rather have that than one major injury. But there's no doubt that this year is concerning. Now, do I think it's a guarantee that this is what we're going to be dealing with? No, I don't, because he's shown availability in college and even in last year's rookie year, despite, the rib injury that perhaps compromised him for a couple of games. I do find that conversation about the rib injury and even the admission with, who was it, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase? I forget who the guys were in that podcast before the season started. I asked Dan Quinn about it before the season started. He didn't want to talk about it. But when you go back, it's interesting to kind of consider the protection of Jaden Daniels by the coaches, right? His first game against Tampa Bay as a rookie, they're running zone reads at the goal line with 2 minutes to go, down 37-13. That was not very smart. I remember coming in the next day and saying, hey, Dan, Cliff, don't do that. Like, let him hand the ball off at the goal line. Let him throw a quick fade. Don't have him running zone reads where he took big shots. And then after the rib injury against Carolina, to come back in the very next game, against Chicago, and, have him running 8 times for 52 yards in that particular football game. He didn't have a great game in that first game back. Of course, it ended very well. The team, it's funny, moved the football in that game, just for whatever reason, didn't score points. And then in the next game, it was one of the 3 best games of the season for him from a QBR standpoint, from a passer rating standpoint, against the Giants in the Meadowlands. He had a 95.1 QBR in that game. He had a 128.8 passer rating. He ran 8 times. They were running zone reads in that game. Same thing with the Pittsburgh game. Pittsburgh played the run and the zone read, and there were a lot more handoffs. But when you think about sort of the protection of him, the Tampa game, and then with a rib injury, they never slowed him down. And I remember saying, if his ribs are broken and there's a risk to this, then it's malpractice the way they're calling these games, which is still why I believe there was a rib injury, but they weren't broken ribs, even though he suggested they were, because they didn't call a different game for him in the subsequent games after that Carolina game than they had previous to it. He was still posed and executing as a dual threat quarterback in those games and had a couple of very good games. The Giant game, 2 games after the injury being one of the 3 best games he had the entire season. But back to this year, every single time, every opportunity to kind of get on any kind of a roll got interrupted. Green Bay game, week 2, and then he's out for a few weeks. Comes back for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, he's out again for a couple of weeks. Then he comes back and he's out for a couple of weeks more. Then he's back in there, and then he's out for a week, and that turns into the season. Yeah, that's the number one question mark for me. I don't have any questions about things that I've read about that some of you seem to be concerned about: processing, anticipation throws, knowing when to run, knowing when not to run, the protection of himself in the open field, mild concern because we had it last year. And, I do want to see him not treat 1st and 10 in the first quarter like it's 4th and 5 in overtime. I do. I think there's still some growth there. I would agree with that. I don't see anything in the games in which he played fully healthy start to finish that would concern me football-wise. But I am concerned that with his frame and with the number of hits he does take, part of that is because of the way he plays. Part of that is on him. Part of that is on the coaching staff. Part of that is, like the Seattle game and even the Dallas games where there's just nobody on the field that can get open and nobody on the field that actually is even trying to get open. So, those situations concern me, but I'm not like totally convinced that this isn't also possibly an aberration year, that 4 or 5 years down the road, it's 2029 and he's played 2026, 2027, and 2028 for the most part, fully healthy. I don't expect 3 straight years without talking about Jaden being banged up. I do expect that to be the case. That's the case with, by the way, pretty much every player in the league, including some of the great quarterbacks in the league. But do I think it's going to cost him 13, essentially, out of 17 games, start to finish playing? No, I don't think it's a guarantee, but it is my number one question mark, availability. And then I would, as Rome suggested, count 5 steps to get to the next concern, which would be, and it would kind of go hand in hand with number one, and that is he's got to grow and learn, like I said, and I use the same example, probably beating it to death. You can't treat 1st and 10 early in the game like it's 4th and 3 in overtime. Got to know the difference. As the franchise quarterback and as the absolute, key to a team having a successful season that you're on, you have to be available. And those are the kinds of decisions you've got to understand and grow into understanding that this is a no-brainer. 1st and 10, I'm sliding. 1st and 10, I'm jumping out of bounds, even though I'm giving up the possibility of a 6-yard gain for a 0-yard gain, and maybe even a -1 and a sack, which gets registered as a sack. What's your number one Jaden Daniels question mark coming out of his second very, very incomplete season? Max will give us his answer when we come back. I want yours at 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. All right, just a reminder, phone lines open, 301-230-0980. What's your number one question mark about Jaden Daniels after this season? The what do you got today? Max, I think you saw this. The ACC announced that its football schedule for 2026 will feature some teams playing 9 league games and other teams playing just 8 league games. The ACC may be the most screwed up league in terms of power leagues we've ever seen. 12 teams are going to play 9 conference games. 5 are going to play 8. I'll remind everybody, and Virginia fans know this, Virginia played NC State this year in football, and it wasn't a conference game. I can't wait, Max, for the team that plays 9 and finishes 8-1 and wins the conference over the team that finishes 7-1 with no head-to-head.
Everyone's going to be so happy. If there's one thing I know about college football is that change like this is going to fix everything. No one's going to complain anymore.
Somebody goes 8-1, they're in the ACC championship game. And then there are, let's just say, 2 or 3 teams that finish 7-1, and 2 of those 3 aren't going to go. Or the 7-1 the point, actually, the way it would be, this would be the best. 2 8-1 teams go, and there's a 7-1 team that gets left out because they finished actually in 3rd.
That's exactly how it's going to work out, and it's going to lead to even more changes, and then we'll get more changes that are kind of unnecessary. So it's just par for the course for college football, man. That they just continue to shoot themselves in the foot in a myriad of different ways.
One of my favorite, sort of ways that people on social media sometimes describe various things, they will say, he's an unserious person, or that's an unserious franchise. The ACC is an unserious conference.
Absolutely.
They've got some of the dumbest people making decisions. I mean, the tiebreaker alone that they allowed to be in place this year was insane. I mean, even the Mountain West figured it out. And that is a tie for second goes to the highest ranked team in the college football rankings. The ACC didn't figure that out, and that's why Duke played Virginia in the ACC title game. It should have been Miami playing Virginia in the ACC title game. If that had happened, then Miami or Virginia would be in, the winner of that game would be in, and Notre Dame would be in as well. So glad my school went to the Big Ten. I'm kidding about that because I was devastated when we left the ACC. Still miss it, but I miss the old ACC. I miss the 9-team ACC or the 11-team ACC, not the 18-team or 20-team ACC with Notre Dame as a partial member. I don't even know how many teams are in the ACC. Is it 20?
I think so. I'm not sure.
18. I think it's 18. The ACC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 18. All right. Back to the question at 301-230-0980. What's your biggest question mark when it comes to Jaden Daniels after his 2025 season, which was super incomplete? Again, can't emphasize it enough, really. He played in 3 football games out of 17 start to finish healthy, and only played in 4 start to finish in total. My number one concern is what my emailer, Rome, who tweeted this, actually. It's not about talent or regression. It's totally about, can we get 16 to 19 games out of this guy a year? He played 23 compromised last year and had 3 different injuries this year. More worrisome than 1 major injury. This is absolute number one concern. Go 5 steps down for the next one. Max, what's your number one question mark about Jaden Daniels after 2025?
I've been thinking about this a little bit because Jaden is a number one. He's a competitor first, above all. And when the coaching staff and the medical staff don't clear him, it becomes concerning to me, like how he will think about this situation down the line. Because it's like this training wheels thing. I don't know how much trust he's going to have in this team and this like staff as a whole going forward. If like, but like at the same time they're 4-10. I really haven't thought this out completely. At the same time,
wait a minute. Are you saying that you feel like some sort of bond has been broken? That a trust issue is a concern between Jaden and team? It's
something that I am going to keep my eye on, just because it's a gut feeling thing for me. Because a lot of times when a guy is so competitive as Jaden is, because that's the number one thing like I've learned about him in this entire time that he's been here, is that he, before anything else, is a competitor. And when you take that opportunity away from him to compete, I feel like he's going to feel some type of way about that down the line. Now, he's very reserved, and he does, a great job in the media not giving you really anything to go on. That was kind of illustrated in the little scrum that he did yesterday. But it's just something to monitor and something to think about down the line when it comes to, us handing him a gigantic bag over the next couple of years.
He didn't sound...
No.
He said all the right things yesterday.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, he doesn't give you a ton.
No, he's savvy when it comes to those things. Like yesterday, talking about, not being cleared. He towing the company line yesterday very much. All right, let's get to the phone lines. Let's start with Skip. Skip, what's your number one Jaden Daniels / concern after 2025, now knowing the season is over?
Kevin, I'm with you. I think if you did a redraft, Jaden might not be in the top 2. I think he'd be number 3. And Bo Nix has not got hurt yet, I don't think. J.J. McCarthy has, and so has the guy in Atlanta. But the other 2 guys, have been healthy, and availability is the best ability. So that is the number one concern. However, I don't want to hear anybody else talking about anything else, because there was a 2.5 game stretch. San Diego, the Bears, other than the turnovers, and the first half of Dallas, where that was like last year. That was similar to last year. He has a lot of strengths. His arm, he has one of the best arms in the NFL. He can throw all 3 levels of passes. He has the intelligence to learn, a system and execute it well. He has something that you can't teach, which is he's 6'3" to 4. Okay, he's bigger than Caleb Williams. Drake May is probably the best, combination of thickness and height. But he could play a pro-style offense. I'm not going to be mad if Cliff Kingsbury, who I do respect for what he did last year, if he gets another job, I'm not going to be mad, because I would love to see Jaden in a pro-style offense where he can see over the defenses and he can pick them apart and only runs when he has to. I would love to see that, Kevin.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Skip. I appreciate that. I think, I mean, I understand there are college elements to the offense, to Cliff Kingsbury's offense, but it's not a college offense. There are other offenses similar to it in the NFL. There's a lot of Chiefs and Mahomes elements to what Washington has, a lot of RPO, a lot of shotgun. A true college offense is when the quarterback truly is dual threat on the majority of plays. That's not Jaden Daniels. That's not any quarterback in the NFL. When I say dual threat, and I'm talking about a spread, I'm talking about linemen taking different splits. I'm talking about, a much faster tempo than Cliff's tempo. I'm talking about, super short, spread out, help with hash marks, by the way, attack, with the quarterback being a run threat on virtually every play. So it's all, it's mostly RPO combined with zone read. That's a true kind of college offense. It's not what Washington runs. There are elements of what some of the spread college, I'm saying in air quotes, offenses have. No doubt, more elements in Washington's offense, in Kansas City's offense, several others. It's not the only offense in the NFL that looks this way. It is by far and away the offense that takes the least amount of snaps under center. That is true, but that by itself does not define college offense. I mean, we're getting into, real, kind of, if you pay attention to college football and you watch a lot of college football, Washington doesn't run a true spread offense, a true Big 12 Cliff Kingsbury offense. It's not air raid. It looks nothing like the air raid that they ran at Texas Tech. But there are elements of what you see in college in their offense. Let's go to Billy in Chantilly. Billy, what's the number one question mark about JD5 after this season?
Kevin, I think it's obvious to anybody who's paying attention, and nobody's talked about it. It's just outrageous. So why are they sitting him for the last 3 games? It's to protect him. Is that right? Do we all agree with that? No, I totally
no doubt. I think in many ways, Billy, it's to protect themselves. It's to make sure that they don't have to deal with that press conference where they say Jaden is scheduled for an MRI later today. That's what they're afraid of.
That is coming from a position of weakness. I hope that's not what it is. But I think primarily it's because you've got an offensive coordinator whose offensive scheme can't protect him. And with 3 games left, they don't want Cliff's offensive game plan implemented with Jaden, in shotgun formation. And because of that, it's obvious. Cliff's gone.
Okay, so you're not then if it's obvious that he's gone, then it sounds like you don't have any concerns.
Yes, I do. It would
what
be,
is it?
JD5 working with his new offensive coordinator in 2026.
Okay, so you want to see who that is. So it's a mystery more than it's a question mark. Yes,
it's a question mark for me.
Yeah,
Kevin.
I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm not going to be fall off my chair stunned if Cliff Kingsbury isn't the offensive coordinator here this year. I'm not going to be, but I'll tell you what, I will be surprised. I will be surprised.
I'll be stunned if he's still here, and I'll be disappointed.
Okay. Thank you for that, Billy, as always. Let's go
Thank you, Kevin.
Anthony in D.C. Anthony, what's your number one Jaden Daniels question mark after this year?
So I'm going to answer the question, but I'd like to ask you 2 questions afterwards, if you will allow me. One related, one unrelated.
Okay.
All right. So health is a concern, but like Skip and like Billy, I'm more concerned with how they're going to use them. As you mentioned multiple times over the course of the season, why are they running him on power runs, things of that nature? Why is the offense 85% shotgun? That kind of stuff. That's what I'm worried about more or less. I think he can protect himself. I mean, after a certain while, you learn certain things that you can do and that you shouldn't do. And this is only his 2nd year, so the risk that he's taking will be mitigated as time goes by, in my opinion. So I'm more concerned about the way they use him than him staying healthy. I think he can stay healthy.
Okay.
All right. The two questions. I know you and your boy Scott used to partake in the culture back in the day. If you don't know, the next time you have him on, can you ask him how he came about using the Mississippi Mass Choir's "I'm Not Tired Yet" as a part of the program?
I mean, he's a big fan. That's number one, but I'll ask him specifically. You're going to have to send me something to remind me, but go ahead. What's next?
Okay. Second thing, you have access to these people on, I know not on a regular basis, but you do have some access to them. So the next time you get Dan on, and or talk to Cliff, why don't you ask them some of these hard-hitting questions that you bring up, that the callers bring up, like why are you running power runs with your real thin quarterback?
Yeah, I haven't had
Things of that
Cliff on the
nature.
show. I certainly would never shy away from asking anybody tough questions. I don't think that's been my MO. But I had Quinn on before the season started. That's the last time I had him on. I'll have him on again in the off season for sure. I've never had Cliff on. Cliff hasn't done a lot other than what he's required to do. But I've certainly asked for him.
Okay. Well,
all right.
If you ever get the opportunity, those are some questions.
Yeah, the Cliff thing, trust me, I would absolutely ask about the designed runs that 90% of the time end up in a pile in the middle of the field or somewhere on the field of play. I just, you know how I feel about that. To me, that's a Josh Allen and a Cam Newton kind of play. It's not a, it's not a Jaden Daniels kind of a play. But you know why, coordinators love it. No matter where they are, if they've got a quarterback they feel can do it. It's because it's true 11 on 11. It's not even option 11 on 11. It's 11 on 11 football. And you ask any offensive coordinator from Greg Roman to Kyle Shanahan to Cliff Kingsbury, and they'll tell you there's no bigger advantage when you're running the football than to have that extra blocker.
I get that part, but I don't like them running inside.
Me neither.
Run them outside.
Me neither.
And,
Thank you, Anthony.
some breaking news for you. Tua got benched.
Yeah, I saw that after the show yesterday. That's not surprising to me. And I do think the funny thing about Tua is that to declare a quarterback done is insane given what we see every year, the resurrection of somebody that we thought was done. The big difference between Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith and Sam Darnold and anybody else that kind of had a second, or third opportunity and then started to play well is they all had NFL arms. Tua does not have an NFL arm. He just doesn't.
Not by a long shot.
Thanks, Anthony. Everybody on hold, Bobby, Samaj, Kev, Frank, Aaron, Steve, Athens, stay there. I want your number one question mark about Jaden Daniels now that we know his 2025 season is over. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We got a little quick update for you. We start off in Miami where the Dolphins have benched Tua Tagovailoa for Quinn Ewers. He will be getting the start this week for the Dolphins. Next, we go to the Caps. They fall to the Minnesota Wild by a score of 5-0. And the New York Knicks, they won the NBA Cup in Las Vegas last night over the San Antonio Spurs. Tonight, right here on the Team 980, we got Georgetown Hoyas taking on Marquette. Tip-off at 8:30 for that one. Pregame gets going right here on the Team 980 at 8:15. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office and take command on our Team 980 YouTube page. And that's what's trending.
From my guy Damon. Damon writes, Kevin, coach in Northern Virginia, absolutely love the show. Never called or written. But thanks for clearing up the Cliff offense. It's not even close to what he ran in college. How mummy Mike Leach wouldn't recognize this offense. It's not air raid, even though there are college elements. Appreciate your description. When I hear people say Cliff runs a college offense or it's so different than anything else out there, it's just not true. There are elements of college offense because he had a quarterback and he wanted to make him comfortable, and he built in, a lot of, shotgun, zone read, RPO, quick decisions, quick throws, and by the way, then other things like, spacing and four verts, all the Hal Mummy, all the Mike Leach, air raid elements that he had at Texas Tech are also contingent on the way the field lays out. And also college rules. College rules are different. In addition to the hash marks being significant to offensive football, the RPO at the college level, you're allowed 3 yards downfield before being called ineligible. At the NFL level, it's 1 yard downfield before you're ineligible. There's a lot that's different, but it's not to say, and I think Damon would say this, he said sounds like he's a coach in Northern Virginia somewhere. They have college elements in the offense. Almost every team does now have some college elements, and we call them college elements, and they've been in the NFL now for 10, 12, 13 years. Going back to really Cam Newton, RG3, Russell Wilson in 2011, 2012, when we started to see the zone read become part of the game. With Cam Newton initially in 2011, more red zone stuff, and then here comes the pistol. Here comes RG3. Here comes what the Shanahans got from Chris Ault and from others at the college level. And in that opener against New Orleans, we had never seen that at the pro level. We'd never seen pistol in the NFL. We had never seen zone read be anything other than a gimmicky or a red zone or short yardage thing. No, Robert Griffin III on 25 to 30% of the snaps in 2012 was a true dual threat quarterback. By the way, that zone read element is also a phenomenal play action tool in the NFL. You saw it on 1st and 20, the touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin on Sunday. That is a zone read look, but it's play action on the zone read look. And when you have a quarterback that is dual threat that can run, defense has to account for it. But yeah, no, it's not the true Cliff Kingsbury Texas Tech offense. Can't run that at the NFL. But there's a lot of college elements, if we want to continue to call it college elements, in the offense. And he certainly decided last year, my guy's more comfortable not under center than under center. And my preference still is, even when they hired Cliff Kingsbury, and I'm fine with the way they ran offense last year, it worked. And it works in other spots too. Kansas City's made it work. Philly's made it work to a certain degree. It's not the only team in the NFL, even though the under center snaps are much lower than the rest of the league. I still, not because I love Mike Shanahan and the whole Shanahan tree, I still prefer that as the offense that I'd love my team to live in. And I think Jaden would be a phenomenal Shanahan-style offensive quarterback. We'll see what happens in the offseason. What's the number one concern, number one question mark you have about Jaden Daniels following this season? For me, it's availability, but I'm not like I don't think it's a hopeless situation. I think there's a real good chance it's a one-off and it's an aberration. Let's go to Kevin in Arlington. Kevin, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm with you. I mean, there should be no concern about Jaden's ability to win from the pocket, to be a professional quarterback in the NFL who's excellent, who's in, the upper tier. My issue or concern is how quickly does he transition to being more of a pocket passer? I don't care if it's under center or from shotgun. I mean, I'm sure there's advantages if, he would be more comfortable. That's the thing. He needs to learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable to evolve into a quarterback who mostly wins from the pocket, in my opinion. He's not done a good job so far at protecting himself. He's a baller. These are bigger, stronger men. And I want to see that maturity where he'd rather make the play with his arm. I mean, you watch Patrick Mahomes now versus when he was first starting out. A lot of times he's scrambling to throw. He's not scrambling to run. And what would help Jaden is to have more confidence in the weapons he has. Right now, it was a disaster this year. I mean, you've said it many times about the injuries, particularly in the pass catcher realm. I mean, it was a disaster. You need to give your quarterback confidence, not only from the standpoint of you've got an O-line that can protect him. He does have that, and I'm grateful he does. That's one of the hardest things to do. But he needs weapons as well. And, with the limited draft picks we have, we're going to have to get those weapons in free agency. They're going to need to spend. So to me, the whole thing is we've got to accelerate his transition to being less reliant upon his legs to win and more reliant on his brain and his magnificent arm to win from the pocket. That's I think if you get there quicker, the unnecessary hits, the number of hits, that goes down. I don't know. Maybe I'm pie in the sky in it, but
no, I know what you're saying, and I think that there was certainly evidence that he is comfortable and can deliver from the pocket. He did it in a lot of big third down spots last year. And so I know he can do that, but to your point, he's got to be comfortable with everything around him. I think the offensive line right now is as solid as it's been in a long time, and there's good prospects for it to continue to be, good, got to be healthy, all those things. But the weaponry around him needs to be improved and needs to be available as well. I mean, we still don't know, Kevin, this year, if everybody had stayed healthy, Terry, Noah, Debo, Luke, like maybe it would have been good enough around him. It was good enough last year, and I know Diami, wasn't back this year. Olamide wasn't back this year, but we never got that chance to see if it would have been good enough. But I'm with you. I would err on the side of at least getting somebody else that can win and win quickly, because there's really only, there's one guy that can win more often than not, and that's Terry. Thanks, as always.
Thank you, Ken.
Appreciate it. Let's go to Aaron. Aaron's calling from Indiana. Aaron, go ahead.
Kevin, thanks for taking my call. Long-time listener, first-time caller. My number one concern definitely is Jaden's availability. Definitely concerned about his size and everything, but I want to know if you were aware during the game against Minnesota, they quoted Kevin McConnell as saying that he believed that organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations. And I just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, he said that maybe a year or two ago, I think, maybe in reference to Sam Darnold. I don't know. It could have been a reference to that, but I do remember him saying that. I think there's a lot of truth in it.
Yeah.
The right place, the right fit means a lot. I mean, Sam Darnold's the perfect example of it. Sam Darnold was in the wrong offenses with the wrong people. And then he got a backup role with Kyle Shanahan. And a year later, he was lighting up the league in Minnesota with another Shanahan disciple in Kevin O'Connell, a Jay Gruden disciple as well. And so, I think there's a lot to that. I think sports, timing is everything, man. Especially with guys that you don't look at as so. But there are certain guys where timing doesn't matter. Like I think you could put Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes almost anywhere in any system, and it probably would work. But for 90%, no doubt, it's got to be the right fit. And there are organizations in this league. I mean, our organization was the perfect example of it for a long period of time. That was not the right spot for somebody with great talent.
Right.
Thanks, Aaron. Let's go to Steve. Steve, go ahead.
Yo, Kevin, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up, Steve?
What's up, Goon? How you feeling, man?
What's up, Thug? How you doing, Hoodlum? What's up?
Yeah. What's up, hustler? Hey, Kev, real quick before I mention mine, when you were talking to Billy Chantilly, and you made a comment, I think you said because they want to avoid the MRI announcement. And I wanted to understand the context on that. Were you saying you believe that is the case now, or were you predicting of them getting into a scenario if he was to re-injure himself and then they would have to come forward with an MRI announcement?
Yeah.
Or you believe that's in place currently?
Yeah. I think the reason he's not playing anymore is fear. I think it's the fear of what if we put him out there in these final 3 games with short week of practice going into the Philly game, then a short turnaround before the Christmas Day game. And instead of the press conference that announced that he's shelved for the year, we had to have a press conference to say he's scheduled for an MRI later this afternoon after being injured in the game yesterday. They feared that. That's like, we don't want any part of that. I think it all stems from a lot of things in the way the year's gone, but the Seattle game, let's not forget, Dan Quinn was torched, not here locally, which he was, not just here locally, but nationally. So to put him out there when it is a debatable subject, especially with 3 games left, and to have to, and have it go worst case scenario, which, by the way, everything's gone worst case this year, right? And they envision, can you imagine, God forbid, we end up having to hold a press conference to say he's scheduled for an MRI this afternoon after taking the hit on the knee yesterday. They didn't want any part of that. Yeah. That's what I thought.
And I'm of the same thought as well. Definitely the fear, because it's just like you said, nationally, and then the fan base, we'd have been crushed again. You mean to tell me this dude got a pinky so hurt in the last 3 games again? So I totally get that. But to the question for the call, it's availability. And you want to see a commitment on both sides, coaching staff scheme to lessen his chances of being in harm's way, and also a commitment from Jaden to go ahead and, lessen his chances of what he can control on the field. And thinking about what Max had said earlier about him being an ultra competitive, I totally get that, right? He's definitely a strong-willed competitor. But if he wants a longevity to be on his side, I think it's an easy decision for Jaden to make. And your question, let me ask you this, a bonus question, Kevin, if you don't mind. I've been thinking about this. You take your Michael Vicks, your Lamar Jacksons, I guess maybe Randall Cunningham, maybe throw Jaden in there. If you had to pick, would you prefer a quarterback more in the ultimate scrambler from those I just named, or one who was more in the mold of, say, an Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, where they just kind
Jaden Daniels, what we saw last year. That. Yeah, much more of that. The latter.
That's it.
I want my quarterback to be able to deliver from the pot. First of all, I want my quarterback to be a good passer of the football, right? And that means accuracy is everything, and timing, anticipation, processing, having that ability. He's got that. We saw that all last year. That didn't just all of a sudden disappear this year. And then number 2, I think in today's game, you are at a major disadvantage if you can't create that, what Quinn calls second playoff schedule, especially on a condensed field. Red zone football is so important, and the best red zone teams can do one of 2 things. 1, run the football. 2, they've got a quarterback that can give receivers enough time to get open after the initial play, isn't there because the field is so condensed and can't be stretched. So yeah, I want the latter. I think you have to have it. Thanks, Steve. Talk soon. All right. If you're on hold, we'll do this one more second. Bobby, Samaj, Mark and Largo, Paulie, Frank, Montana, Athen. We'll get to all of you. Just quickly answer the question. Your number one question mark about JD5 after this 2025 season in which it's over now, and he played start to finish healthy in 3 football games. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. My number one question mark about Jaden Daniels is just availability. I'm not convinced that what we saw this year is going to be a trend because it hasn't been previously in his career. But it is my number one concern. Availability is number one when it comes to ability, as we know, and he wasn't available this year, nowhere near enough. Played in 3 football games, start to finish healthy, 4 total start to finish out of 17. They're not going to be a good football team if their franchise quarterback doesn't play in 16, 17 games a year, at least 14, 15 games a year, fully healthy. 301-230-0980. What's your biggest question, Mark, surrounding Jaden Daniels following the completion of his 2025 season? Let's go to Athen, who's been on hold. Athen, thank you. Go ahead.
Kevin, you know when you're at the craps table and it's like losing is like breathing, or it's 0.7 out, 0.7 out,
yeah.
and nothing goes right.
But don't you think it's about to turn When you crap out 7 for like the 8th straight time with, by the way, every number loaded up with odds, don't you feel like it's about to turn?
Of course.
Yeah.
And then, so hopefully that's what it's going to do in 2026 for this kid. But it's durability for me. But part of being durable is having talent around you where you don't feel like you have to do everything on your own. When you know your defense can get a stop or at least hold them to 3 points. And that's what it is for me. The reason I use the gambling analogy is not only because I know you love dice, but because Peters rolled the dice and rolled snake eyes like beyond – 7, 8 times, 12 times in a row, 0.7 out, and with the team that he put on the field this year. Yeah. He thought that because they had, they were safe. Safe. They were not injured last year. He thought it was going to be the same. No, we played a much harder schedule. So for me, he can't go into his 3rd season without a defense. This defense next year has to be at least top 15, a B player minimum. Dan Quinn and the GM are on the clock for me to see what they're going to do to keep this kid upright and what type of team they're going to put around him, especially on defense. Defense has got to be able to help this kid out and get stops.
We don't want to have him start putting his money to start the roll on the don't pass line. We don't want that. Thank you very much.
There you go, bud.
Let's go to Bobby in North Carolina. Bobby, go ahead.
Good morning, my friend. This is, in all the years I've listened to you, this is the easiest question to answer what you've asked, this durability, Kevin. And, I'm really concerned. I really am, because this kid's going to continue to get dinged. But I think my biggest concern, because we know this is probably going to happen, first of all, the organization has got to take the bubble wrap off this kid, okay? This is a big boy sport they play every Sunday, every Thursday, every Monday. Okay, he's going to get dinged again, Kevin, and they got to take the kid gloves. He bruised his elbow, okay, in the Minnesota game. He could have came back in. He should have come back in because it was only a 17-0 score middle of the 3rd quarter, okay?
And we feel like 17-0, Quinn said.
I know what you're saying, but, we can score. This offense can, move the ball. We won't out of the game. And then we get there, analysis on he could have come back in the game, okay? And then he doesn't play, last week. Kevin, they got him bubble wrapped. They're playing scared. And, you gamble like I do, brother. Scared money don't make no money. Anytime I've sat at the blackjack table, I'm telling you right now, you better keep pressing and pressing and pressing. And God, thank you that he has not had a catastrophic injury yet, Kevin, okay? We've been lucky. These are little dings, bruises, his knee, his ribs last year. But this is not going to go away, Kev. And this is going to hurt Jaden in about a year and a half on now when they talk about getting that second contract, bro. He's got to be able to get on the field to play. And, he's got a bruised elbow right now, and he's not playing, okay? It's BS. I know there's nothing to play for. Season's over. It's been over for weeks now. But he's able to play, and you go put him in a bubble wrap and not play him for the rest of the year. It's just not a good look to me. That's how I feel about it. I mean, in this offense, just because they run shotgun, that's not putting him out there to get hurt. If you put him under center, it's going to be the same thing. He just got to get more durable. I heard people talk about where he played in the SEC, those big-time football players there, and he never got hurt. And I hope this is just a one-year deal with Jaden. Trust me, because I love Jaden, and I know how he is important. I don't want to be talking about a quarterback a couple years from now trying to find one in the draft again when I know we got our guy. But he's got to be more durable, brother. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, look, back to what you said in the beginning. I do think that there's a lot of fear there, but I also think the squeeze ain't worth it necessarily, here with 3 games left. But by the way, Bobby, just so you know, I never take even money odds with an ace up. I never surrender with an ace up. I'm playing it out. And so, yeah.
I'm not surrendering.
I mean, I think taking even money is stupid. I mean, and actually, I think odds-wise, it is not the right play to ever take even money on an ace up. All right, I'll talk to you later. I want to get to some of these calls. Thanks as always. Samaj, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Kev. Thanks for taking my call, Max. I'm trying to keep this quick and sweet, Kev. Most of it is co-signing on your takes. and in agreement with a couple other callers. The obvious is availability. So I'm gonna hit you with a couple hypotheticals based on your takes, and then answer the question. So my thing is Cogman behind Billy from Chantilly and a few other callers, probably Paulie behind me. I agree with you totally, Kevin, that Cliff we don't have a college offense. It's very much a pro offense, as you said, with the college elements. But Cliff calls the game like he's in college. And I can say this because I watch college football every Saturday. I watch more college football than the NFL. And he calls the game like he's in college. And that's the part
explain.
that I have issues with.
I'm not disputing it. I want to hear what you mean by that.
Okay. And so and this is just over the course of time and growth. So, and when I say that last point, that was up until the bye. Since the bye, he's been calling games like a pro offensive coordinator. He's been leaning on the run. He's looking for balance. And what I saw the last couple games is what I really like. And that is when the run is working, he's finally gotten the patience, whether it's his patience or whether it's Quinn's foot up his butt or whatever, but he's sticking with the run. So I'm just going to say Cliffy might be still evolving as a play caller, but up to the bye, he was calling plays like he was still in college. And those are the two specific points that I can say. He would just call plays like this is what he sees, this is what he's going to do, so I'm just going to call it. Pros, man, you got to call what works. You got to call what your scouts, and then you got to be able to make adjustments. And Cliffy just.
Do you know what Washington's current pass play percentage is? Samaj, I just looked this up because I didn't know. Washington right now in pass to run is basically 52 pass to 48 run. That's fifth lowest pass to run ratio in the league. Now, runs, scrambles count as runs, and so I don't know what percentage it would be with scrambles, but they're nowhere near the top half of the league in pass to run percentage breakdown. Just as a matter of fact. I mean, I think I sometimes watch the play calling and get very frustrated at least 3 or 4 times this year, certainly in the Minnesota game more than any other, I think. Even the Green Bay game, I remember, like, come on, man, you can't drop back. You can't protect him. Like, try to run the football at least. But I don't think he calls the game like a college. This college versus pro is like almost it's not a college offense. There are college elements in the offense. You can't run a true college offense, or you can't run air raid at the college level. Lots of reasons for it. RPO rules, ineligible downfield rules, hash marks, lots of different things. Can't take the splits that linemen take at the college level against NFL defensive fronts, etc. But there are college elements to it. I do agree with you that on Sunday, and the week before, and the Denver game were the 2 games in which it's like,
Kevin, it's been since the bye.
Yeah, okay, that's since the bye. All right,
definitely. I've seen growth. And lastly, Kev, like I said, to co-sign on you, and your point. And this is like I said, Cliff's evolving, so I'm 50-50. He stays or goes, but if he goes, God damn, please bring in somebody with the Shanahan offense, because I'm with you. I think Jayden would marvel, and that brings me to my answer to your question. My answer is, how many games would it take for Jayden to become prolific in a Shanahan offense?
I don't think it would take long at all.
L to the W.
I don't think it would take. He has very good ball handling skills. He would be exceptional in what they call the QB keeper game. Most of us call the bootleg game. Imagine, you get some zone run scheme going and you're a threat to run the football from under center, and him out on the edge on a QB keeper or bootleg. I mean, the run pass threat from that alone. The easy pitch and catch stuff is always great. I'm trying to think of like who the top OC candidates are going to be. Like a lot of the Shanahan style coordinators could be up for head coaching jobs. Like some of the, actually the guy in Green Bay, the defensive coordinator from BC, I know he's in Matt LaFleur's system, but he was the head coach at BC. I think he's a top head coaching candidate. We'll look into that at another time in terms of if Cliff were to leave, where do they turn? I'll tell you where they might turn internally with a guy like David Blau. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, go ahead.
L to the W, big guy. What's going on, man?
What's up?
Hey, no, we did know the Cup was last night. Just like we knew the quarterfinals was Saturday night, and it was a great Final Four, and it was a great championship game, man. Let's go Knicks.
See, nobody knew it was going on.
All right, look, man.
Nobody did.
What you mean,
when I saw that OKC lost the other night, I saw that they lost the other night. They lost to, I think, the Spurs, which stopped.
Didn't know.
But I didn't know it was a cup game. I had no idea it was a cup game.
You didn't know it was a cup game. I had you look at the floor. Hey,
I didn't watch the game. I saw the final score.
Exactly. Everybody know the Cups are Tuesdays, Saturday nights.
No, everybody doesn't know that. You know that.
If you NBA fans know it's Tuesday and Saturday night. I know you're not really invested because you're a Wizards fan.
I'm not invested right now in the NBA regular seasons anymore. I'm not. That's a fact.
You're invested in this bad football you've been watching.
Yeah, well, so are you. What do you got?
Let me say this. This Shanahan style, it doesn't have to be no. The only thing that describes the Shanahan style is the zone blocking scheme. That's it, man. You can have Cliff Kingsbury style offer, whatever you want to call it. It's just about
Stefanski, by the way, Stefanski. Let me just mention that if he gets let go and doesn't get a head coaching job, sorry, continue.
It's just about committing to a running game, right? That's it. Commit to the running game, and that's what he's done over the past couple of weeks. Is try to commit to the running game. And you can have whatever style offense you want to call it, whatever it is, but you got to be able to commit to the running game, and that's what he hasn't done for 2 years now. All right. Now, with my question about
he didn't do it against Minnesota. He didn't do it the last 2 weeks.
Man, he didn't do it against Denver neither.
He did it more against Denver. He did it more against Denver and combined it with the quick passing game.
You can't. Your lead back can't have 11 carries and you tell him you
I hear
to
you.
The running game.
I hear you.
That's not committing to the running game. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. My question about Jaden is not about Jaden. All right. This is not Lamar Jackson in his first 2 years. Jaden is polished. All right. Jaden's not skittish in the pocket. All right. When Jaden runs, he does run to throw, but he also runs to move the chain. That's part of his offense. Is Jaden picking up first down? See, that's the problem. My question is through the roster and through the scheme. That's it. If you want this man to carry your team, that's the type of game Cliff Kingsbury calls. He puts it on Jaden's shoulders. Well, if you want to put it on the shoulders, man, give him people around him that he can actually carry. And that was the problem with this season, man. The castle crumbled around him. He can't carry, and I don't want to, call them bums because they're professional players, but he carried a bunch of below average players. He couldn't carry these players. And in the process, he got hurt himself trying to do too much. And, injuries going to happen here and there. But to say, he's injury prone, come on, man, it's one season. He's going to be all right, but they have to put a team around him, and they have to put a scheme around him. That's why you call it the college scheme, like my man Samaj was saying, because it's like Kingsbury just calls plays. There's no rhyme or reason why he called them plays. He thinks that his plays and his talent, his plays and the talent should outbeat the defense plays and their talent, which you can't do if you ain't got the talent but at one spot, and that's quarterback. Jaden is fine, man. Look at the last game he played. You talking about he read through your man Steve Suter on the pass that the Debo dropped. Said it himself. He went through 3 reads. That was his last read. Did he look like he was skittish in the pocket? No. Jaden is polished when it comes to passing the ball. They just got to have people around him. All right, to start the season, the offensive line was in the flux. It took the 3 games where they had to make trades, or make lineup changes. Then Cosby came back. Since Cosby came back and solidified this line across the front, man, this line has been good. Yeah. But they got to commit to the running game. It's not about a Shanahan style. It's about committing to a running game and playing off of that and then letting Jaden.
I agree with that. You every offense is more productive and more consistent when you can run the football. But running the football can be done in many different ways. I do agree with that.
Let me end with this. Let me say this. It seems like when Cliff does call, he needs a home run hitter at the running back spot. He wants a guy that can take the ball 40, 50, 60 yards. And he didn't start trying to, and that was the whole reason why Rodriguez didn't start the season as lead back. It was Austin Eckler, because he wanted a quicker, shiftier back. That's the type of running plays he wants to run. And we don't have that type of running back. That was the reason why they got rid of Robinson. So if that's the type of running plays and all that, they need to get the personnel for that, Jeremiah Love. You know what I mean? So that's what it is.
He's not going to be
that's
there
what
at
it
8 or
is
9.
with me, man.
All right.
Hey, hopefully he is. But that's what it is with me. It's not Jaden.
Right.
It's what's around Jaden.
Good call.
To the W.
One of your better calls here recently. Actually, most of your calls are pretty good. Montana in D.C. Montana, go ahead. Thanks for holding.
Thank you for taking my phone call. Appreciate it. I'll be real quick because I know you don't have a lot of time. I'm not concerned about Jaden Daniels as far as injuries concerned. A lot of people, including yourself, are forgetting. Didn't last year happen? Last year happened. So if last year was this year, and this year, as far as injuries, then I'll be concerned about Jaden Daniels. So if he was hurt all, this much last year as well as this year, then I'll be concerned. I'm worried about next year. If he has these same injuries next year, missing, majority of the season next year, then I'll be concerned. So I'm not worried about as far as Jaden Daniels, as far as injuries. But this is what I want to call about. This is what I want to say. Main concern for me in regards to Jaden Daniels, if this was basketball, Kevin, you guys are big basketball fans, including yourself, he cannot dribble left. Jaden Daniels has a hard time going to his left. So this is football, obviously. So when he's pushing to his left, that's when he gets discombobulated. So if he doesn't focus on that next year, it's going to be a long season, because all teams have to do next year defensively is use that Green Bay tape. That's what Green Bay did this year. They forced him to his left, and he just gets confused for whatever reason. I don't think Green Bay looked at any tape last year of Jaden Daniels. I think they looked at all, some of Jaden Daniels' college games, and I think that's where they got that tape from, because they forced him to his left, and then he just had a hard time, going to his left. So once he, if he takes care of that, it's going to be sky's the limit for him. But I'm not worried about any injuries, man. Thank you for taking my phone call.
And I think that was a bit of an issue last year, too. The Green Bay game, the bigger issue about forcing him left was that the pressure was instantaneous in that game. Mark and Largo, finish it up for us. Go ahead.
Hey, I kind of agree with everybody else. I think availability is everything. But I think the most important thing is I agree with what the last caller just said, forcing them left. But I also think, too, he needs talent on all sides of the ball. And this is where, knock, knock, Kyle Pitts, you got to have multiple threats on this offensive side of the ball instead of him having to do everything, okay? And I think an athletic tight end, Kevin, we haven't had an athletic tight end since Jordan Reed. And when Jordan Reed was out there for Kirk, was tremendous because it opened things up for Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Carzon. So, I mean, if you have an athletic tight end out there and you have receivers, bring De'Ami Brown back if we're going to keep Cliff, which I think he's going to go to New York and be in the Giants, or he may go over to Tennessee or something like that. Bring Kyle Pitts in and then bring De'Ami back. Maybe you can do something. Don't make any trades. Please don't make any trades, Adam Peters. Save your picks so you can build up the defense. But try to build up, get some threats around him for Jaden so we won't have to do everything. Because Deebo Samuel, I've said this many times, has been a disaster. And Noah Brown on the IR again, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that saying? Adam, look, I don't mean to beat Adam up like I am, but his work is – that trade for Jahan Dotson was a disaster. Because if you're going to talk about Noah Brown and him, that's just a disaster. But see, y'all don't want to call him out on that. Kevin.
Oh, wait, his trading of Jahan Dotson was a disaster?
If you compare – no, see, this is what people get lost on what I'm trying to say. They talked about trading Jahan Dotson for draft picks, and that's fine. But here's the thing. They talked about Noah Brown getting him off the waivers like he was the second coming of Jerry Rice, and at the same time, he hasn't been available. And, by the way, when they made their run last year, he wasn't available. He was on IR last year.
Right.
When they made their
But
run.
Noah Brown cost them nothing, and they got
playoffs.
picks back for Jahan Dotson. You started with the Jahan Dotson trade wasn't a good trade. They picked up
No, it
you know,
wasn't.
what
I
was
still
it?
think it's not a good trade.
Third round
Because I
pick
think
for Jahan Dotson?
because
I gotta go. I gotta go. I'm up against it. You're the best. Liam Griffin, who covers the team for the Washington Times, next. Liam Griffin covers the team for the Washington Times. You can follow Liam on X, on Twitter, at @ByLiamGriffin. He joins us right now. Liam, if somebody had been, locked away in a cave over the last 3 months and they just came up for sunlight and air, and you were standing there, and they said, "Oh my God, they're 4-10 after last year? How did that happen?" Go ahead and take your time, but what would you say? How would you describe the 4-10?
I mean, the easiest way to describe it is injuries. Everything that could go wrong went wrong for them. All the concerns pre-draft about Jaden Daniels' durability kind of came true this year with him having trouble staying on the field. All the concerns about Terry McLaurin missing training camp and maybe potential injuries for a wide receiver on the wrong side of 30, those came true as he had trouble staying on the field. Same with Noah Brown, who's about to turn 30, and they just caught the bad injury bug every step of the way. You look at it now, and it's hard to remember, oh, yeah, they lost Austin Eckler for the season early on. They lost the defensive end Dietrich Wise. They've lost Marshawn Lattimore and Trey Amos, and all those injuries have really piled up, both in losing that production on the field and then losing that time in practice, as guys have really not been on the same page a lot of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Now, with respect to Jaden Daniels, a few questions. Number one, what do you think he's being shut down for?
I think the biggest thing that they're shutting down for is it's just not worth the risk to them. Obviously, they're not super concerned about this elbow injury, although that's what Dan Quinn has been saying all week, is that he's not medically cleared to play this week, but he could have been cleared later on. But it just isn't worth the risk for someone who has had 3 different injuries pile up over the course of the season and has left 3 straight games early with injuries. He hasn't been able to finish games. And so they're looking at this as an opportunity to sit him down and say, all right, we want to get you the snaps on the field in live game reps. That's not going to happen. Let's see what we can do now by kind of starting your off season early and giving you a different perspective in preparation and practice to see what we can do to get ready for next season.
For a guy who played 3 out of 17 games, start to finish fully healthy, that's it, 3 of the 17. And I'll ask you what I've asked callers for the last hour, 45 minutes. What's your number one concern or number one question mark about Jaden Daniels now that we know his 2025 season is over?
My biggest concern is not the durability even. Is he going to be able to play with a full confidence? We have seen around the league over the course of years, guys who have early injuries or have problems with pressure because of bad offensive lines, and it changes the way that they play the game. And so that's what I'm curious with Jaden Daniels is he going to be able to still play with that full set of confidence that we saw during his rookie season? Because when you look at the tape of what he did this year, he didn't always look fully comfortable. There were times where he maybe could have pushed the ball downfield, maybe thread the ball into some tight windows, and instead he said, all right, I'm gonna tuck it and run, because he was so turnover averse. I don't know if that's in not trusting the arm or not trusting the receivers, but that's the number one concern is he going to be able to play with full confidence going forward?
Let's delve into that a bit. 3 games start to finish fully healthy. In the other 4, he either didn't finish the game, or in the case of the Green Bay game, he didn't finish it healthy. That confidence, because I think there's something to, he didn't look, especially last week against Minnesota and certainly against Seattle. And I think we all know there were major issues at receiver in that Seattle game. But do you think a guy that is supremely confident and has been, do you think he took a hit to his confidence that needs repairing? And if so, how does the team help him repair it?
I really think that's something that can't be understated. When you look at the stats and the analytics of it, where he really excelled as a rookie was standing up in the face of pressure and delivering balls downfield. And there was a really massive drop-off in his passer rating when facing pressure this season. And so he's someone who is kind of really dedicated off the field. You hear a lot about his VR training regimen and things of that nature. But as the team, you have to really be honest with him and say, you're superpower. Dan Quinn loves to talk about those superpowers that players have, is your legs, is your ability to create, but it's also your ability to push the ball downfield. And so really creating that as an emphasis in practice and during the offseason going to be a really big part of his development.
How much of the versus pressure, again, limited sample size clearly, but how much of the versus pressure this year versus last year was because of the receiving core he had out there for much of the time?
Yeah, I don't think you can underestimate that or understate it, because Terry McLaurin was somebody who is really their only downfield threat through so much of the season. And he was either off the field, not on the field when Jaden was there, or they just weren't able to connect. And so when you lose that kind of option, well, what do you have? You have Chris Moore. You've got, Zach Ertz for a lot of the season. And when you're Jaden Daniels and you're looking at that, you might say, okay, I'd rather try to create with my legs and make something happen because I'm the most dynamic athlete on the field in that situation. So I think that losing Terry McLaurin in particular for so much of the season really adjusted the way that Jaden felt comfortable attacking opposing defenses.
There was something that came out last week about his increased level of scramble percentage on dropbacks. I don't know if you saw it. It was an increase of like 2 percentage points, 2.5 percentage points. I'm wondering if you looked into that and you had thoughts on it.
I have not, but I do think that it's that comfort level. I know I keep coming back to it, but I think that's the story of the season. If you're going to look past injuries, it is the comfort level of his risk aversion. For a lot of these quarterbacks who are they don't want to throw interceptions. That's the worst thing that they could do on the football field. And Jaden is one of those style of passers. Aaron Rodgers is somebody who is pretty similar, where they don't want to put the ball in harm's way. But at the same time, you are kind of handcuffing your offense when you're not as willing to take those risks. And I think that is a big part of that scramble rate as well, where I don't think it's him entirely being, he's being moved off his spot by the pressure, or he's not as agile or as mobile of a quarterback. I think a lot of it is in that trust in the receivers and trust in himself to make those throws.
Talking to Liam Griffin from the Washington Times, with him not playing these final 3 and really the final 4, because I think the decision was made last week, do you think others should follow, like key, pieces to the plan for 2026? I mean, what else should they do now that they're in 2026 mode?
I don't think the answer is going to be in shutting players down. I think I've seen some of that from the fan base of saying, all right, put Terry on the bench. He's had troubles with some of those soft tissue injuries. Why risk it? But I think what your focus has to be on is determining who is going to be a key contributor next season. I did the math the other day. They've got like 31 pending free agents on this roster. Right. And so you need to figure out, okay, who do we want to keep? And also, who do we need to bring in competition for? And so when you're looking at players like Ben Sinnott on the offense, you need to figure out who is going to be starting at tight end, because it's probably not going to be Zach Ertz. You used a second-round draft pick on Ben Sinnott, and he's someone that you've loved the versatility of. All right, well, this is his opportunity to go out and prove it. You have the same situation on defense as well, where you're looking at an aging Bobby Wagner. He was on a 1-year deal. You don't know whether or not he's going to come back for sure. All right, Jordan McGee, what can you do? Are you getting someone who is going to be able to potentially wear the green dot for this defense next year? Same thing with they are not using him as much as they were earlier, but a guy like Tyler Owens, who started to make that transition from special teams to the defense. But it's guys like Daron Payne, who's on a contract year and was making a lot of money. This is really a kind of prove it time for them to say, how much of an overhaul do we need to embark on this offseason, especially when they're working with some limited draft capital after the trades they made last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, my siding with some of the fans that have suggested it would be, I'm not talking about guys like Sinnott. I'm not even talking about guys like Connerly Jr. I'm talking about Terry, Tunsil, Cosme, Luvu, Kinlaw. Like, these are key pieces to 2026, under contract pieces for 2026. Terry's had soft tissue. Tunsil actually got hurt last weekend. I don't see any reason for him to play the rest of the year. Sam Cosmi, lost the first 6 or 7 games this year because of a late season injury. If they're not going to risk the quarterback, I think there are 5, 6 other pieces that should be protected as well.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see, I don't think they're going to completely shut all those guys down immediately, but when you look at Tunsil, he had a designated veteran rest day yesterday as he normally would, but they're not going to rush him back. If it were Jaden under center, yeah, you want to protect your franchise quarterback, but
of course,
Laremy Tunsil is someone who's also, he's going to be looking for a contract extension this offseason, and so he may be, making a little bit of that business decision as well and saying like, all right, I got to prepare for this next year. I got to protect those financials. But by week 18, I definitely think you could see a few more of those players who are just not going to be starting.
I mean, there's no doubt, Liam, that they're going to extend Tunsil in this offseason. They can't let him play 2026 and get to unrestricted free agency, right?
No, especially since he has arrived as advertised. When you look at bright spots for the season, he has been everything that you wanted. I know it didn't work out and you want to protect your franchise quarterback. He took some hits, but I don't think you can pin that on Laremy Tunsil. He has been a Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber player, and that skill set of being an enormous franchise cornerstone left tackle, that skill set typically ages pretty well. And so even as he's coming on to the second half of his career, I don't think you'd have a lot of concerns. And he's been especially durable as well. And so I would be shocked if they don't extend him sooner rather than later, especially as you're trying to, set your franchise up for success going forward.
Yeah. The elite left tackle pass protector is not easy to find. I mean, there are 6 or 7 of them in the league, and he's one of them. And I know he's getting older, but you traded for him. You gave up compensation. You didn't do it for him to play 2 seasons and walk or use the franchise tag on him on a third. Do you think, by the way, in the list of players that I mentioned, I should have also mentioned, and I have before, but with you, at this point, there's nothing to learn from Marcus Mariota. He's an outstanding backup. He's perfect for the system. I don't think you want to risk him. I'd play Josh Johnson personally over these last 3. They're not going to do it Saturday against Philadelphia, and I'm sure the league wouldn't be thrilled if they trotted Josh Johnson out for the Christmas Day game either, but they're already screwed on this Christmas Day lineup to begin with versus what it would, what it looked like before the season started. But, Mariota, I think, needs to be a priority in the offseason and very quickly in the offseason. Do you agree, A, B, and then B, do you think they'll get something done with him, or is it possible that Mariota's going to have an opportunity to get a deal somewhere to compete to start?
I think that you look at what the free agency class for quarterbacks is like this offseason.
Yeah.
It is incredibly, incredibly thin.
Yeah.
And so if you're a team like the Steelers or the Colts who have some major quarterback question marks, I think Marcus Mariota becomes a really enticing option. I don't, he's not exactly what you would want in someone to be your opening day starter, but is he one of the top 35, 40 quarterbacks in the league? Yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone that you would trust more as an offensive play caller. And he's someone who has a lot of pull in this locker room. He has a great relationship with Jaden Daniels. He has a great rapport with Cliff Kingsbury as your play caller, assuming that Kingsbury comes back and he's not able to find a promotion somewhere. But I think that the backup quarterback spot for a team like this, where you are trying to build it out as fully and as holistically as possible, you're not just, the Chiefs, when the Chiefs lose Patrick Mahomes, they kind of end the season. I don't think that this Commanders team is going to be in that same position. I think if they're fighting for a playoff spot late in the year and they have to have Marcus Mariota start for a bit, I think they feel pretty comfortable with that. And so I do think he's going to be a priority for them going forward. I would be shocked if they are not at least making him an offer, though I would also be shocked if other teams aren't calling as well to at least see what his market is.
Yeah. I don't think they were last year, and I think he's a very unique situation because he wasn't very happy in Philadelphia, and his career almost ended and died there, and he's very happy here, and it'll be interesting to see if he wants that opportunity somewhere else. Is there a player, Liam, in this miserable season that has emerged for the coaching staff, for Adam Peters in the front office, as a mild to even major surprise? Like, they didn't see it coming, and now they really are glad that they saw this guy play, and he's going to be a part of the team moving forward. Can you think of one or two examples of that?
I mean, the ones that come immediately to mind are the running backs in Bill Krosky-Merritt and Chris Rodriguez. And they were getting a lot of hype late in the offseason. Obviously, they were comfortable enough with that group to trade Brian Robinson. But the Austin Eckler injury early on really gave them an opportunity to show what they were able to do. And I think that they hit just about every marker. I mean, Bill has a lot of work to do, especially as a pass protector and as a pass catcher, to really develop into an every down back in this league. But I think they can now go into this offseason and they're able to, retain Chris Rodriguez, who I believe is a pending free agent. Bill's obviously on his rookie deal. But if you come into the offseason with those two guys and they're your two featured backs, I think you feel pretty comfortable about it. You spend a lot of the offseason working with them on their ability to become a third down back. Obviously, Jeremy McNichols has been shockingly good in converting like 3rd and 15s as well. But I think they've been
So
really
true.
a highlight in this season, when that running game hasn't always been set up for success, given the lack of pass catchers and the ways that teams have been able to stuff the box against them. But I think the two of them can really develop into feature backs, and you're able to go, okay, that's one less thing that we have to target in the offseason.
Yeah, it's some odd, stats. Noah Brown last year leading the league in drawn defensive pass interference penalties, and there's no way anybody in the league at running back has more 3rd and double digits where he gets it checked down and he picks it up. I mean, he's had at least 4 of those this year. McNichols. Those are good answers. I would think that Chris Paul certainly has emerged as a guy that they weren't sure they'd be needing to re-sign for 2026, but they have to get that done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He has been one of their other success stories where, draft picks not panning out is kind of a little bit of a theme there, with Brandon Coleman not being everything they wanted immediately. But Chris Paul has been, especially as a run blocker, he has been just absolutely stellar. And he will get another deal in Washington unless he's able to make a bunch of money elsewhere. And then on the defense, I'd also want to shout out Jacob Martin, who
100%.
this pass rushing group has been not exactly what they were hoping it would be. With Von Miller leading your team in sacks is not exactly the goal here. But I think that Jacob Martin has really flashed as a kind of developmental option. They haven't always translated to sacks, but those pressure numbers have been really inspiring.
All right, last one, because I just pulled up your X account. You just retweeted. I follow DVOA and Aaron Schatz religiously, and I think you do too. He tweeted out Washington's week 1 through 5 rankings. Offense was 10th in the league, 1 through 5. Defense was 12th, and then weeks 6 through 15, offense 26th, defense 30th. Why did you retweet that?
Because I just think it is so telling for what this season looks like it was going to be, and then what it became. Yeah. When you look at week 5 was the win in LA against the Chargers. They were 3-2 at that point. They've been kind of trading off. You win one, you lose one. But at that point, Jane Daniels had come back from injury, and it looked like they were in a really great spot to contend for at least a wild card spot the rest of the season. And then the wheels just absolutely fell off after that Bears game, which was a close loss. And it just, after that point, every single thing that could go wrong went wrong. And I mean, you can blame a lot of it on injuries, but a lot of it was on, having to demote Joe Witt as your defensive play caller. A lot of it was on the ways that the offense started to stagnate. And I think that was just so telling in the ways that this once promising season really started to fall off a cliff.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that of the two, the defense being DVOA, I remember saying this after the Giant and the Raider game when people were really excited about how the defense looked. I'm like, the Giants aren't very good. And by the way, Andrews didn't play. And the Raiders were banged up and they stink. And then all of a sudden, weeks 6 through 15, I don't think there's any question Cincinnati would the one team you compare him to, but this has been the worst defense in the league, along with the Bengals. I mean, I think personally it's the worst defense I've ever witnessed as a Skins fan in all of these years. It was horrendous. But I guess they got it together against the Giants again. Too bad we can't play them every week. Thanks, Liam. Appreciate it. Good job.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Liam Griffin, everybody from the Washington Times. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. All right, you got to buy something, you got to sell something NFL related, a team, a player. If you want to weigh in, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. I'm going to buy the New Orleans Saints to win out. They've already won 2 games in a row. They have played major spoiler roles in the NFC South the last 2 weeks, beating the Buccaneers last week, and this past Sunday beating the Panthers, who had an opportunity to take the NFC South lead. Instead, both the Bucs and Panthers are 7-7. The Saints have the Jets this week, the Titans the week after, and they close at Atlanta. If they win out, that's a 5-game win streak. Let me mention, too, it would be 8 games in which they had opportunities to win football games. They swept the Panthers here over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Why is New Orleans, with Kellen Moore in his first year, Brandon Staley as the defensive coordinator, why have they become a tough out? 2 reasons. One, their defense is outstanding. Chase Young playing very well. He had a monster sack late in the game against Bryce Young in a game where they were down 17-7, came back, tied it, and then won the game 20-17. Chase Young had 3 tackles for loss in the game, multiple pressures, and a sack. They've also got Jonathan Bullard. They've got Demario Davis. They've got good players, Cam Jordan. They're good defensively. They're well coached with Brandon Staley. That's one thing he can do defensively. And then Tyler Shuck, the rookie, 2nd-round pick from Louisville, 6'5", 220. Got an opportunity 6 or 7 weeks ago to start playing, and he's played well in recent games, very well. Played excellent against Tampa, really managed the game well, and then they needed him to make big-time throws, a couple of 4th down conversions, 3rd down conversions. He was 24 of 32 for 272, a touchdown, no picks in the game against Carolina in their comeback win. Keep in mind, they just beat a Carolina team, 20-17, who was coming off a bye week after beating the Rams at home. My first buy, pay attention to the New Orleans Saints. I was looking at their cap situation. It's not very good in the offseason, but they are very good and tough defensively. Shuck's playing well, and they, I think, have a chance with the schedule the way it sets up to win out. That would be a 5-game win streak to end the season to finish 7-10. The Saints are my first buy.
All right. My buy is going to be looking ahead into 2026. It won't even be announced a year from now, this award that I'm going to buy. I'm going to buy, since Jaden Daniels has been sat for the remainder of the season, 2026 Comeback Player of the Year, Jaden Daniels. Now, a lot of times the year 3, like Von Miller was talking about it on, I forget which podcast, but he was talking about that year 3 jump that a lot of players tend to make. And I think Jaden's going to make that going into year 3. So give me Jaden Daniels, 2026 Comeback Player of the Year.
Would he be eligible for it?
Yeah. Christian McCaffrey is currently the lead, but you know who's number 2 right now, Kevin? Phil Rivers. After one game. So we're just kind of making up things as we go.
I don't know are there parameters around being eligible? Like, do you have to be out for the entire year? Do you have to miss? I mean, he's missed.
I don't think you do.
He's played in 7 of the 17, right? So it's not half. So maybe he would be eligible. That'd be pretty wild if he were eligible for Comeback Player of the Year without a devastating injury. More, just nicks and knacks for the most part.
Bumps and bruises?
Yeah. I'm buying Josh Allen to lead Buffalo to the Super Bowl.
Ooh.
I think that when in doubt, quarterback. And in the AFC, Josh Allen just proved on Sunday he's the best quarterback and will be the best quarterback in the postseason. I do think there are better teams. I think overall the Patriots, even though they just lost to the Bills, are a better overall team than Buffalo. Buffalo is not very good on defense. I would even say that Denver and Houston are better overall teams than Buffalo. But when in doubt, it's quarterback stupid. And so Josh Allen is the best remaining quarterback, or will be the best quarterback in the AFC playoffs. I am not shying away from my pick of the Houston Oilers to face the Rams in the Super Bowl. I do think the Texans are the best overall team and playing the best right now. And by the way, they've already beaten Josh Allen once. We also had Evan Washburn on the show yesterday, and he said, hanging around the Bills the last couple of weeks, they believe Houston is the best team and would be the toughest matchup for them, but maybe they can avoid Houston and get there. By the way, like right now, can imagine two wild card teams, Buffalo and Houston, advancing to the AFC title game. And right now, Buffalo has a 1-game lead over Houston, even though they lost head-to-head, and that game would be played in Buffalo. That would be one hell of an AFC title game. Houston at Buffalo in late January. Josh Allen, I'm buying to lead the Bills to the AFC Championship game. Do you have another buy?
No, but I do have a sell, and
okay.
It's the top 4 seeds in the AFC. I am selling the AFC division winners right now because I just do not believe, I understand the Broncos had.
I just gave you Buffalo, Houston as wild card teams in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
I'm with you on this. Unless
Packers,
Houston wins the division, right? You've
That's,
got to
yeah,
put that caveat
Of
in
course,
there.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But the Jags at 10-4, I don't buy. There are things that I can list off with each one of these teams. Like the Broncos, I still don't trust Bo Nix. The Packers dropped so many interceptions in that game. The Patriots, they don't have a pass rush. And Drake May has looked a little shaky in late game situations sometimes, especially like last week against Buffalo. I can't muster the courage to believe in Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen. Aaron Rodgers, no, I'm not buying a 42-year-old in the playoffs. Justin Herbert has a broken hand, and the Chargers' offensive line is non-existent. So it's the 6 and the 7 seed, Kevin. I really just can't shake it, man. I can't. You're right. Buffalo, Houston. That's it.
All right. I am selling Seattle from advancing to the NFC Championship game. Tomorrow night's game is going to be sensational. What a game. December 18th, NFC West on the line, likely the 1 seed on the line. I just think the Rams are a better overall team. And I don't trust Sam Darnold. I know we have these conversations all the time about Sam Darnold, but he looked shaky against Indy's defense. Indy really played well defensively Sunday in Seattle. I mean, do you realize that Seattle did not score a touchdown in that game? 6 Jacob Myers field goals in that game, 18 points for Seattle. Sam Darnold always seemed under duress, always seemed to take his eyes off downfield, threw a couple of those turnover-worthy balls that didn't get picked but could have, and almost lost to 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. And that's not the way the games go, but you understand. Now, Indy also did a great job against the run, and that was where I was going to go next. I don't know why Seattle's not a good rushing team, but they're not. They've got good backs in Walker III and Charbonnet, but they're not a good rushing offense team. So you got a quarterback that has proven in his biggest games recently, he doesn't see it, he's slow to process it, and he ends up throwing back-breaking picks and taking back-breaking sacks, and you don't have a run game to help him. They've got a dominant defense, and Jackson Smith-Njigba is the real deal. There's no doubt about it. But I just don't trust Seattle. They almost lost to Phillip Rivers, and Rivers did a phenomenal job overall. And it was fun to watch it. It was fun to watch an above-the-neck performance in that environment which is one of the best and most difficult in the league. I can't buy into Seattle. I don't see Sam Darnold taking the Seattle Seahawks as good as they are on defense, man, because they are unbelievable defensively. We saw it, when they came here, how good they are on defense. And Smith-Njigba right now, the best this year. I don't trust Sam Darnold. I don't trust Seattle. I'm selling the Seattle Seahawks from advancing to the Super Bowl. They're going to be a playoff team, obviously, but that's it. What else do you have?
Those were really my only two. I mean, it's the Jaden Daniels 2026 Comeback Player of the Year is my buy, and then I just can't seem to muster the courage to buy any of these division winners out of the AFC. That's where I'm at right now, given the playoff picture.
I wanted to mention something. If you guys want to weigh in, 301-230-0980 if you've got an NFL buy or sell, and we can take some of your calls in a moment. But, one game we didn't talk about when we went around the NFL on Monday or Tuesday, whatever day that was, is what the Eagles did on Sunday to the Raiders. And the reason I'm bringing it up is there's a parallel here. So the Eagles beat the Raiders 31-0. In the game, the Raiders had 75 total yards in an NFL game. 75 total yards. And it reminded me of something. Remember when the Raiders earlier this season played the Kansas City Chiefs? They got beat by the exact same score, 31-0. And in that game, they had 95 total yards. That game was truly, up there with one of the most impotent, least, effective offensive days in NFL history. The Chiefs had 30 first downs that day. The Raiders had 3. The Raiders didn't convert 1 third down, not 1 fourth down, had 95 yards of total offense and got beat 31-0. And guess who the Chiefs played the following week? Washington. Now off of the Eagles' 31-0 beatdown of the Raiders, where the Raiders had 75 total yards. They had 7 first downs to 27 for Philadelphia. They did convert 3 third downs. They were 3 for 12 versus the 0 for against the Chiefs. But following the Chiefs' 31-0 pasting of the Raiders, they played Washington, and the Eagles' 31-0 blowout of the Raiders on Sunday, their next game, Washington. So Washington gets 2 teams that essentially had days off. Nothing's gone right for us this year. Nothing. Schedule, nothing has broken right this year. All right, if you want to weigh in, NFL buy and sell. Cliff Kingsbury, by the way, just spoke. We're going to have some of that. I'm interested in anything he has to say about Jaden or anything else. Ian wants to weigh in with an NFL buy and sell. Go ahead, Ian. Ian, are you there?
He was 2 seconds ago.
Ian, are you there?
Do you have me?
I do. Whenever you're ready, honestly, whenever you want to do it.
Did he just hang up? He hung up.
He hung up?
I don't know. He hung up. I looked over, waited for him to talk, and then boom, gone.
I'm telling you what,
Ian, you're on probation.
I don't put people on probation, but he'd be one to put on probation. You got to be ready to go. But then again, with people like Ian, after him, everybody else comes first. By the way, somebody brought up to me that the ACC doesn't have 18 teams. It's got 17 teams. Thank you for that. I was wrong. But he pointed out Notre Dame plays an ACC schedule, so they're sort of an 18th team. Yeah, sort of, but not. Remember last week with Notre Dame being outraged and really ticked off with the ACC. Well, how about joining the ACC or any other conference? Go for it. The other thing, too, is several of you have tweeted during the show. Kevin Stefanski would be one that could be available in terms of the in terms of the, Shanahan tree. I have heard, not heard, I've read, in some of that, what we're hearing stuff from various NFL reporters that Kevin Stefanski will be a head coaching candidate if Cleveland fires him. There's a lot of respect for Kevin Stefanski, and they chalk up the record to being in Cleveland. It's just like, everybody always called this the reverse car wash, like you came in clean, left dirty. But the truth is, you left with a record that looked terrible, but you were forgiven for it because you had to do it here. You had to do it in a Dan Snyder-owned organization. Cleveland is now viewed the same way. Stefanski may get another opportunity to coach if they boom the whole staff in Cleveland. To be a head coach, specifically a head coach. If he doesn't, I definitely think Kevin Stefanski would be outstanding as an offensive coordinator and as an offensive coordinator for Jaden Daniels. This is, in the event Cliff isn't here. And then others also suggested that Matt Nagy may be available. Like if there's a cleaning of the house or if there are major changes in Kansas City, could Matt Nagy be available? I don't know. I don't know. He's not of the Shanahan tree, Matt Nagy. And I don't think there are any ties, right, to Quinn. I don't think so. Yeah. That's interesting. I had not thought about what will happen in Kansas City after this season. I mean, is Andy Reid going to retire? Are they going to make major changes? I don't know. All right. When we come back, some of what Cliff Kingsbury said earlier today. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Want to tell you about Foley Mechanical. So last year, actually 7 or 8 months ago, we were having some issues with our HVAC system. We were told to call Foley Mechanical. Dan Foley himself, he's the owner of Foley Mechanical, came out, dealt with us directly. He was great. Dan owns 100% of the company. It's not a franchise. It's not some big private equity firm. He controls all the quality, and we got that sense the moment we met him. From the equipment to the people he hires, they're all professional, skilled, and sharp. Foley Mechanical is a full-service heating, air conditioning, hot water, and boilers company. They're the go-to for older homes with radiator heat, a real specialty. They work across D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, the entire DMV, and they proudly install Amana HVAC equipment. If your system needs help or you just want it done right, call Foley Mechanical or go to FoleyMechanical.com and tell Dan himself, you can get him on the phone, that I sent you. Real quickly on Hard Knocks last night, did you watch it, Max?
Yes, it did. There wasn't a lot on our team, but it was nice to see them finally get a win, so that was good.
Yeah. There were a couple of interesting things. I thought Zach Ertz with, crutches, knee, he's in there helping the tight ends coach, watching practice and, pointing things out when it came to Sinnott, I think in particular. There was that. I'm telling you, man, Zach Ertz has been a net positive across the board since signing him and bringing him here. You ask anybody out there, they'll tell you he is an adult, he is a pro, and he is smart. And everything about him has been what they were looking for as they came in to, a very difficult and downtrodden organization trying to build it back up. But I actually thought there were a couple of other things that were more interesting about the Hard Knocks, and it has to do really with the Cowboys and their game against Minnesota. There was a real expectation, man, that they were going to get back on track after losing to Detroit on the Thursday night game. Sunday night TV, and you've got Collinsworth and Tirico, talking to Quinnen Williams, talking to others. But there was a confidence level with Jerry and Steven and that, owner's box. And Brandon Aubrey, by the way, missed a couple of kicks in the game. They had his kind of home story and how his wife actually convinced him as a soccer player at Notre Dame to try out field goal kicking. But the best part of it was as the game was slipping away, Jerry in that box. He's devastated. He's
smacking the desk, yeah.
Oh, my God. He stays slamming down his fist on the desk. And there was another point in the game. I don't get this, man. Dak Prescott gets hit, and he's like, feeling around on his chest. He's like, damn, ripped the chain off my neck. And he's looking down at the ground trying to pick up the chain that was around his neck. Why do players wear necklaces and chains in games? Why is that even allowed?
This is drip. Looks good.
It's stupid. He's taking valuable in-between playtime to try to pick up the remnants of the chain that was around his neck. I see Justin Jefferson with just, I don't know what level of diamonds plural, are on the chain that he wears. But of course a player can grab it and rip it, and it can be, shattered all over the field. I don't understand how you're allowed to wear that stuff in a football game. But that was the best part, watching the Cowboys go down to the Vikings and watch their season just crumble on Hard Knocks the last 2 weeks. Because after, they came back to beat the Eagles and then beat the Chiefs on Thanksgiving Day, there was a confidence level in that organization that not only are we going to run the table here and make the playoffs, but we're going to be a problem for everybody once we get there. you could see it a little bit, last week against the Lions. Their defense was better with Quinnen Williams and the addition of Logan Wilson, but it still was nowhere near good enough. And then you got that one dog of a game from Pickens against Detroit. There was some of that in the Hard Knocks. Jerry's talking to Schottenheimer and others about, the game that Pickens played against Detroit, and does he love football? And they're all assuring him, oh, he loves football. He's a grinder. He just had an off night. They lost to the Vikings 34-26. And they could not figure out Brian Flores' defense. Couldn't. But, the other part of that is Brandon Aubrey. I mean, he missed 2 field goals in that game. 2. One of them was like chip shot, like 45 yards, 46 yards. He also had a fake field goal run. Did you see that on the opening drive?
Yeah, it was pretty sick, dude.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the Hard Knock story. Cliff Kingsbury just spoke a little while ago. I wanted to play some of that for you. This first one, is this about Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, so we join the presser goes live a little bit while he's in the middle of this, but this is the last couple seconds of it. He said it was a DQ and Adam Peters decision. So I'll play the few seconds I got of that.
AP and DQ, and they came to a decision on it, and so that's kind of part of the game.
That's it. That's what he got on that.
Okay, so that's, on Jaden Daniels, him saying that he had nothing to do with it. I think I said this the other day, that I would bet that Adam Peters probably drove this conversation hard more than anybody else. But at the end of the day, ownership, Adam Peters' front office, and Dan Quinn, my guess, and I would call it an educated guess, is that everybody was in agreement. Nobody was pushing back, even Quinn, and saying, no, he's got to play. He's our starting quarterback. We still have 3 games left. The conversation before the Minnesota game was much different than the conversation after the Minnesota game. And I think it's at that point, it looks like they just made the decision to shelve him. I think they made that decision last week. And I think you could hear it. And I think it was telegraphed by Quinn in his Wednesday press conference 1 week ago today. But I think just the fear, as we've discussed the last few days, of, the worst case scenario is why they're shelving him. It may not be something that people like, the reason for it. At the same time, I would guess, finger on pulse of fan base as much as it can be, that this is, kind of a 60-40, 60% probably are happy and thrilled that he's not going to play again this year. 40% feel like, what are we doing here? We're babying him. He should be playing. There's still 3 games left in the season. And I think, by the way, of the 60% that believe that they're doing the right thing, I think there's a hardcore 30% of that 60, like a third of those people think like this isn't even a conversation. Like, don't be stupid. He's your franchise quarterback. You should have been sitting him once you were mathematically eliminated. Because I know there are people out there, because we started to talk about this, after the Seattle game. That's when the conversation first started. And at that point, there were still 7 games left in the season. You had nearly half your season left. And there were people saying there's no reason for him to play again this year. What else do you want me to play of this list? You've heard this. Where should I go next, Max, for Cliff?
Let's go with, this has kind of been the story all year. Let's hear this next quote just about availability and kind of how he's had to deal with it throughout this whole season. I know we've heard a lot about it, but I think this is probably a good one.
Is it hard to assess his season given the ins and outs and all that happened with the offense, or how would you go about assessing that?
Yeah, no doubt. I think with how it went, it's just hard to get an assessment, but he did all the things you can ask him as preparation and practice habits, things of that nature. Just was one of those years with inconsistency as far as availability, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, they're the last. Coaches are the last, typically, people to do what we do, which is assess it honestly because they don't want to look like excuse makers. All right. And Cliff has now done it in back-to-back weeks in his press conferences. He's talked about and been asked to evaluate Jaden, and he's like, it's not really possible. You know, he wasn't available enough. And then last week he said there when he was available, those around him weren't available. Again, I mean, you're going to hear a lot of, national people that haven't followed the day-to-day and don't know, what happened in the Seattle game as an example. You're going to hear a lot of regression and sophomore slump and, oh my God, year 2 revealed these major flaws and inadequacies. You gotta have your head examined if you come to the conclusion without, any, debate or without any thought of everything else context-wise that this was a major step back regression season or even minor. You can't evaluate it. He played start to finish in 4 games, and only 3 of those did he play start to finish fully healthy. The sample size is way too small. And if you're going to take the 3 games in which he started and played fully healthy, start to finish, they were good games. The Chargers game and the Bears games were good games for him. The Giant game wasn't a great game for him, but it was far from a bad game for him. It was the opener. Week 1 should always be taken with a grain of salt, but it was hardly a bad game. He was 19 of 30 for 233, a touchdown, no picks, and he rushed for 68 yards in a 21-6 win. But I'm not even looking at that and saying, well, let's just judge him on the 3 games that he started and played fully healthy. That's too small of a sample size if you want to lean positive. What's next from Cliff?
So we got something on the Eagles defensive front. Oh, actually, I wanted to play this one about Jaden and confidence since that's kind of what we've been talking about a little bit. So here's that.
Okay.
Hey, Coach, facing the Eagles.
Nope, that's the wrong one. It's the one before that.
It doesn't seem like it to us, but you've been around Jaden more. Does it ever seem? Have you ever seen him have a lack of confidence because of what's going on? Do you ever worry about that as an OC?
No, I don't. I think these are things you have to go through as a young player. It's part of the deal, developing thicker skin and mental toughness through some of this adversity. But he's super competitive. He loves to play the game, and he'll be better for this and having to go through this and really manage it throughout the season.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I do think I have seen, and that is in the Minnesota game in particular, there was just a lack of true Jaden kind of, you look at him and you're like, this dude's in total control. Now, I think part of that is on Cliff in the Minnesota game, the lack of preparation for the pass rush, the lack of running the football in that opening drive that would have changed the context of the game, at least in the early portion of the game. But he definitely looked a little bit like, what's going on here? Where's it coming from? What are we doing here? And in the Seattle game, I would say the same thing, but I think we know that there were reasons for that. What else is worth playing here? I'm looking at your list now. What else is worth playing? Anything?
Yeah. So another thing, if you're
How about
curious,
with the running back stuff?
that's
Rodriguez
exactly what I was
Bill?
going to go to. I wanted to hear kind of a little bit about that.
Let me hear that.
Obviously, with the running backs, you always want to have somebody who can play on all 3 downs. But when you look at Chris only has 1 catch, 2 targets, and Bill few more, but still adjusting. What do you going forward? What do you kind of need to see from those 2 guys to maybe develop into that, or is that something maybe not in their wheelhouse?
Yeah, I think they can. I think both guys are definitely functional in that role. We just feel like J-Mac right now on that down probably gives us our best chance of success. But if we needed either one of those guys, they could get it done. I think Bill's biggest skill is just continuing to master protections more than anything. But as far as catching the ball out of the backfield, he can definitely handle that.
All right.
So Bill needs to block.
What did he say about turnovers and penalties? Is that worth playing or not?
I mean, it's like I said, it's been the kind of the story about it all year
right.
with this whole team. So it's
What do you say about the Eagles' defensive front? Because they have been dominant here
They have.
recently, except against Chicago.
Hey, Coach, facing the Eagles for the first time, can you talk about the Eagles front against your front and what you see there with that matchup?
Yeah, it's certainly a tough matchup. They've been playing at a super high level defense. I think they gave up less than 90 yards last week against Las Vegas. So it's going to be a great challenge. They can roll in 5-6 guys deep that all play at a really high level and can rush the passer, can stop the run. So you got to be creative in how you attack them. And we'll have our hands full. There's no doubt.
And then the last few.
Yeah. The Raiders, you got to be careful about, getting worked up about a result against the Raiders. We've seen what they are this year. Jalen Carter hasn't played the last couple of games. Is he going to play on Saturday or not?
I don't believe so. I think he's still dealing with that shoulder thing.
Okay. I mean, they got absolutely torched on the ground by Chicago. And the Chargers ran the ball well with Hampton back in that Monday night game. They were better, the Eagles were, defensively against the Chargers. I mean, they forced, I think, 3 turnovers in the game, and that was a brutally physical football game. And Herbert was playing with the broken hand, etc., and he ended up rushing for a bunch. But that was the first game I think Hampton had played in since getting hurt against us all the way back in week 5. And he had a good game. I think you toss the Raiders out, if you're interested in the team actually competing to win the game on Saturday. But you look at what the Bears and the Chargers have done in the last 2 real opponents. If Jalen Carter is out again, you might have a chance to run the football Saturday against them. You certainly don't want to drop back a lot against Philadelphia's pass rush. They sacked Justin Herbert 7 times in that Monday night game last week. So you've got to be able to stay balanced against Philadelphia if you're going to have a chance. Do you know what is Jalen Carter's status? So they're not the same team without him up front.
No, they're not. It's that double shoulder surgery that he got. I don't know the specific timeline of when he's going to be back, but they're
continues to recover.
Playoffs
surgery
is the target.
Yeah. It looks like he's not going to play Saturday. Yeah. So that's a break for Washington offensively.
I'll take it.
Yeah. You know what? I'd like to see. I don't know if Rodriguez is going to be healthy enough. I actually don't need to see more of Rodriguez. I know what he is. I want to see Krosky Merritt again. I want to see that. All right. I want to finish up by talking about something that Dan Quinn said yesterday. We'll get to that next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, happy Wednesday, everybody. We start off in Miami, where Tua Tagovailoa has been benched. Quinn Ewers now the starter for the Miami Dolphins. So now we move to hockey. The Caps, they fall to the Minnesota Wild by a score of 5-0. The New York Knicks, they win the NBA Cup in Vegas last night over the San Antonio Spurs. Tonight, right here on the Team 980, we got the Hoyas from Georgetown taking on Marquette. Tip-off set for 8:30 on that one. Pregame gets going at 8:15. Again, right here on the Team 980. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command and Denton's Office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications. Stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
from Ned. Ned writes, I don't need anything other than the thing you gave me last week in your buy-sell segment. Saints outright was your buy last week. I don't remember it being that. Why didn't you give one out this week? All right, I'll give one out this week. You ready for it? How about the New York Giants this week outright to beat Minnesota, who's been on a roll? But last week was more about ruining the division thing because I called Atlanta too on Thursday night against Tampa. Eventually, all these are going to go wrong. It's clear. This is a good one from Jared. Jared writes, hold on, had it here a second ago. Jared writes, Kevin, if you can't judge this season, then why not just run it back? Everyone thought they were Super Bowl contenders, and yet now it's a season we can't judge, but yet they need to make major improvements. Which is it? Well, Jared, I would start with this. Not everybody thought they were Super Bowl contenders. I did, though. I'm the clown that had them in the Super Bowl. Yes, I'm the idiot that said Super Bowl contenders. But remember, we still said going into this season, chance that they wouldn't be as good regular season record-wise as last year, had to stay healthy because they were thin and didn't have a lot of depth. And, of course, the question mark was the defense. It was a mystery going in. Turns out, injuries or no injuries, it was going to prevent anything good from happening. But, yes, it's true. I thought that they had a chance to go to the Super Bowl this year. Complete idiot with my post-Labor Day NFL season predictions. And yet, yes, it's hard to evaluate this season because of injuries, but no, I don't want to run it back. So, the more information, Jared, you get, it's okay to, evolve into a different mindset, into a different opinion. I wanted to play something Dan Quinn said yesterday. So Dan Quinn is trying to get everybody motivated for these final 4 games, starting with the Giant game. And part of this was on Hard Knocks. And I think part of it, he talked about it in the post game on Sunday up in East Rutherford. But this was him yesterday talking about kind of, how they view these final 4 division games.
We can get rolling today for us as a team is like an in-season Wednesday, and with the game being on Saturday, so push all that up. Our division tournament continues, and what we discussed with the team today was just the process of winning. All the things that we need to do today, tomorrow, over the next 4 days to get ready, and a lot of that of the play style and the identity. A big part for us that continues to not be.
You can get out of it. You can get out of it. He said the part that I wanted everybody to hear. The tournament continues. Dan Quinn does something that not every coach does in his required weekly press conferences. He opens up with something that he's thought about that he wants to share with everybody. Sometimes it's something about, something he just communicated to the team. Sometimes it's some sort of message or some sort of theme that he wants to share. A lot of coaches just sit down and say, I'm ready, fire away. Quinn's been doing this as a coach forever. He did it as a defensive coordinator in Dallas. He would sit down on his Thursday defensive coordinator day and open up with, a minute or two, sometimes a little bit longer, of something that he thought about. He doesn't have to do that. I'm sure it's appreciated by the beat reporters. He doesn't have to do it. And, it's another 3 or 4 minutes that he's got to put some thought into, rather than just, hey, tell me when I got to be there and I'll answer any questions they have. But the division tournament theme is how he has, approached these final 4 games: Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles. He's treating it like March Madness with the players. It's like survive and advance. Jimmy V. We got the first one against the Giants. We're moving on to the second round of this NFC East division tournament. It's his way of motivating his team and keeping them in it. keeping them motivated. Hey, man, we got a chance to win the in-season NFC East division tournament. The problem is nobody else knows that this is being played, but you understand why he's doing it. By the way, if they lose to Philly, they're not eliminated because they're going to have to play the Cowboys regardless on Christmas Day. I don't mind this at all. I think it's the kind of things that you see coaches come up with when you don't have anything else to turn to try to motivate them. I will say this about Dan Quinn. I'm a Dan Quinn believer and fan. You know, a lot of you have said over and over again, you know, not sure why you are so in love with Dan Quinn. I think Dan Quinn's a good coach. I never said he's a great coach or an elite coach. And during the whole time of the hiring process, I didn't even say that he was my favorite of the people that were out there. I was very intrigued with Ben Johnson. If he had been interested, Ben Johnson was never a possibility. He didn't want to coach last year. Vrabel was the guy that I was really interested in, if you recall from that offseason. But I was fine with Quinn. My emphasis was on they like Quinn a lot more than you're hearing from other people, you know, in town or nationally, because I had talked to people who knew that they were very much into Dan Quinn the moment they had their first Zoom call. But here's the thing about Dan Quinn, man, and all of his coachisms and idioms and cliches, you know, the secret sauces and the tell the truth Mondays and the in-season Wednesdays and, you know, all of it, you know, all of it is that it's great when you're winning. And when you're losing, you kind of come off as a bit of a meathead. And so it's not criticism, it's just an observation that when you're cliche and coachism and coach speak oriented, which he is, you know, and there's nothing wrong with it, that, you know, there's always a lot of eye rolling on that stuff, but you're okay with it when you're 12-5. When you're 4-10, if you're, you know, looking at this realistically as an adult, there's a lot of reasons that we're out of his control for 4-10. But if we're here a year from now at 4-10 and we got secret sauce and tell the truth Mondays going on, it will have worn thin. But next year's next year. And I doubt it will be this year. That's it for today. Chris is next.